Hi everybody, I hope you had a great spring break full of sunshine and relaxation. I know I did, but it is time to put those sunglasses away and put on your learning face. It's another biology with Miss Judd.
All right, so today we're going to be diving into Unit 7, Evolution. Evolution is one of my favorite units of all time, and I know I say that almost every time, but this time I really mean it, because in this we take all of our biology knowledge that we've learned so far and use it. And we can see how these weird changes, these cool changes to organisms happen over time. Evolution is changing over time. Biological evolution refers to the changes over time that occur in living organisms. So, an understanding how biological evolution, how and why living organisms change over time, helps us understand the history of life on Earth and could see where our future is going to go. The key to understanding Unit 7, evolution, lies with this concept as descent with modification. Living things pass their traits from one offspring to the next. We just finished learning that. Offspring inherit the set of genetic blueprints from their parents, but those blueprints are never copied exactly from one generation to the next. Little changes occur over time. Descent with modification reshapes living things over time, and biological evolution takes place. This takes so much time, like millions of years for organisms to change. Today, what we're going to dive into is this history of evolution. How did we get this theory? How did we understand this process? There were many scientists over many years who laid the groundwork for my favorite, Charles Darwin, to come up with this theory of evolution by natural selection. Sounds like we need to go talk to Miss Judd in the corner. Hello, everybody. Miss Judd in the corner here to talk about this next unit, which is evolution. And today we're going to dive into the introduction. What is the history? What's going on? What is evolution? How does it even start? So to go back, we have to go back to the very beginning and the first scientists who really kind of discovered what's going on our Earth. So we have some geologists. These geologists explained that processes on Earth are changing and have changed in the past. So our Earth is constantly moving. That's where our plate tectonics comes into play. James Hutton wrote The Principles of Geology and explained that the processes that changed the Earth in the past, the volcanoes, the magma flow, are still operating in the present. Charles Lyell proposed that the layers of rock form slowly and that rocks are shaped by natural forces like volcanoes or earthquakes that have occurred over millions of years, and that shaped the Earth and is still occurring today. So, our geologists taught us that the Earth is changing. Our environments are changing and changing slowly and still are changing. And then we get Lamarck on the scene. Lamarck proposed that by acquired characteristics, organisms acquire certain traits during their lifetime. So I got my ears pierced. I painted my nails. These are acquired characteristics. I have gained these during my lifetime. Lamarck said that these traits could then be passed on to their offspring. So, over time, this process led to changes in species, with the long neck of a giraffe. What Lamarck told us is that one giraffe, mom giraffe, stretched her neck a little bit to eat the leaves, and therefore the offspring had a longer neck. This is wrong. So, unfortunately, Lamarck is always going to go down in history as the guy who got it wrong. But I love to talk about him because at least he tried. He gave us a theory. He thought about it. He put in some evidence. He put in good science work. Unfortunately, it was wrong, but he did try. Much of Lamarck's ideas on evolution, he was the first one to kind of say organisms are changing over time. And he's really focused on the neck size of a giraffe. And this is his theory, where the original short-necked ancestor, yes, this is real, keeps stretching their necks to reach higher leaves up on a tree, and eventually the neck becomes longer. It's logical. It's just not correct, because a trait that is acquired or gained in an organism's life does not get passed on two offsprings. That's not how DNA works. That's not how genetics work. We know that. Now, he is significant because he was the first one to try to explain evolution. He was the first one who noticed that ancestral organisms are different than the ones that we have currently. He really set the stage for my favorite scientist of all time, Darwin, to uncover what we now know about evolution. Malthus, another famous scientist, reasoned that if human populations continue to grow unchecked, sooner or later there would be insufficient living space and food for everyone. He was the first scientist that says that humanity's population could become overpopulated. We will compete with each other because there will not be enough living space and food for everybody. And then we get Mr. Darwin. I love him. He wrote on the origin of species in 1859. He proposed evolution through natural selection, and he still stands known as the father of evolution. He is the guy who said organisms change over time because of natural selection. Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of this evolution. Everything that we've learned up until this point has led us to be able to understand the changes of organisms over time. Alfred Russel Wallace was a naturalist like Darwin, and he wrote an essay summarizing his thoughts on evolutionary change. So, Charles Darwin, my hero, the father of evolution, he said that evolution is the process by which modern organisms have descended from ancient organisms. This is a theory, meaning that it's well tested, it's explained, it's based on observations and hypothesis, it has evidence to support it. Remember that scientific theory has a lot of evidence. It basically allows scientists to make accurate predictions about new situations. Darwin joined a crew on the HMS Beagle and set sail for a voyage around the world. He was a naturalist studying organisms in different environments. During his travels, Darwin collected evidence that led him to propose the theory of evolution. This evidence, these observations, are characteristics of animals and plants that varied most noticeably among the different islands of the Galapagos. So the Galapagos is off the coast of Africa. It is islands that are close together that have very similar species, very similar animals, but they look different depending on what island they are on. So that got him thinking, like, man, these finches, these birds, look similar, but they all have different beaks for whatever food is on the island. These turtles look similar, but they all have different shapes depending on the environment of the island that they are on. You do not need to write this, just listen. Darwin gave us this knowledge that natural selection means that some individuals survive better than others and have more offspring than others. So the individuals on these islands that survive better and have more offspring mean that they're passing on those traits, right? Now, the conditions for this natural selection. Traits are vary across individuals. That's entirely true. We do not look the same. And you can look at the human population and see that there is variation in traits. These traits are heritable. We know this. Some traits are better than others. If you are a turtle who has the tiniest shell in the world, that's not going to protect you from predators on your island. If you are a turtle who has a bigger shell, that is going to protect you from predators on an island. That's a better trait to have. So that individual is going to survive because it's protected. Therefore, that individual is going to reproduce, which means that individual is passing on the trait for larger shells. What this means is that over long periods of time, Populations develop adaptations in response to the different environments. Remember our geologists? They told us our Earth is still changing. And it is. Our Earth is constantly changing. Because of that, our environments are changing, which means that what trait used to be so good now could just not be, right? Each living species descends with changes from other species over time. So to summarize, organisms are different, and that variation is inherited. We learned that. Organisms produce more offspring than can survive. There's overpopulation. Organisms compete for resources. Because there's more offspring that can survive, they're going to compete for living space, for food, for mates. Organisms with advantages survive to pass on those advantages to their children. The species alive today descended from modifications from common ancestors. All right, I'm going to send it back to Miss Judd. Y'all are awesome, and I can't wait to see you again. Thank you, Miss Judd in the corner. I feel like I now understand how Darwin was able to get to this theory. We want to make sure that we have all of our notes handwritten. We want to make sure that we understand this concept. So your asynchronous work is to watch an Edpuzzle on Darwin and his theory. When we come back next class, we'll kind of make sure we understand this and dive into natural selection. You guys are awesome. I'm so proud of all the work you're putting into this class. As always, if you have any questions, just reach out. Have a good day. Make good choices.